The international law expert Dr. David Nyekorach-Matsanga has written to the International Court of Justice seeking an advisory opinion on the U.S. military operation in Venezuela. Now, the U.S. captured the Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in a military operation. Maduro and his wife were then taken to New York City, where they are in custody following U.S. strikes in Caracas. And they face a series of charges related to drug trafficking and weapons possession conspiracies. Dr. David Nyekorach-Matsanga is a Pan-African Forum Ltd and Associates international law expert, and he joins us to share his reasons for approaching the ICJ about this particular matter. Dr. Matsanga, thanks so much for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you very much, fellow Africans, for listening and the globe at large.
So, Dr. Matsanga, you say that the capture of the Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro, represents one of the most dangerous precedents in modern international relations. And this is why you have approached the ICJ and sought an advisory opinion. Just explain to us why this is important.
It is important because under Article 65 of the International Criminal Court, we as people who work alongside with agencies of UN and do human rights peace conflicts around the world, we have a right to approach, to ask the Secretary General to allow for an advisory opinion under Article 65 of the ICJ. Why I sought this advisory opinion is one big state in the world called America has become the biggest state swallowing everybody. We are running towards the Hitler syndromes that created the United Nations after the Second World War. We are seeing the syndromes of Hitler coming. People grabbing property, power, minerals, oil, seeking appetite for minerals. So Article 65 allows the ICJ, the 13 judges in the International Court of Justice, under the UN Charter, under the UN mandate, under the United Nations Security Council, Article 3940, to seek an opinion. What do? We are scholars. We are international law scholars. A man like me. That's why I've said, I have never seen anything like this. For the last 30 years that I've been involved in international law and being an advocate of international law, that is why I have gone to the ICJ to seek that opinion, bring it back, let them tell us the world. If America is beyond the law, then everybody can now see the truth, what America has done.
What would the effect of this be, though, Dr. Matsanga, considering that advisory opinions, if I'm correct, are actually non-binding in nature? So to what effect is this likely?
They are binding.
Are they binding?
Yes, the advisory opinions are binding for scholars, students, newsrooms like you, media houses. International law is binding. If you are going to rendition a man, pick a man at night, overthrow a government of another state, pick this guy, fabricate charges like what America has done. We want to see the charge sheet. Where did these things happen? Who were the people buying the gold, the narcotics? Have they indicted the narcotics where they were buying? You can't frame a president. If we allow this to go on in international law without checks, anybody can pick up arms and come for Ramaphosa. They can come for Ramaphosa and pull him out, take him to the US. We have nothing to do. I am protecting African presidents. I'm protecting third world presidents. This adversary will help us.
Dr. Matsanga, I believe we do have you back. And speaking to the binding nature of these opinion that you sought from the ICJ. And if you look at you know, the precedents that have been set, and even by other UN agencies, including the United Nations Security Council, well, there have been violations of these, and it seems to be wholesale by all indications. It's one thing to say this is the law, it should be adhered to. But we've seen over the course of this week, as it were, even though it has been pointed out that there has been clear violations of Chapter 2 of the United Nations Charter, nothing seems to flow from that. And the United States is doubling down on what they have done and what they are saying they are still going to do. And it doesn't seem like anybody can do anything about it.
You see, there is no United Nations Security Council anymore. It is on paper and sitting in New York running allowances. The 2 countries versus 3, my sister. That's not a United Nations Security Council. They are fighting. 2 members of the United Nations Security Council have invaded the countries. America has gone to Colombia, picked up a president. It is threatening, usurped its powers, threatening to control it, colonize it. America is threatening to colonize Greenland, pick it up, a territory. Hitler syndromes. Russia, on the other side, has gone, and it is fighting in Ukraine. The 2 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council have let us down under chapters 7 of the Charter of the United Nations, Article 39 and 40. It's collapsed. So there is no UN Security Council until we reform it. 2, it is sad that there's a chorus, and even if people see, now, if we allow this, the way Mr. Trump is picking up people, he could come for several African presidents. He could come for anyone whom he doesn't agree with. He has an appetite for oil. He has an appetite for lithium. He has an appetite for coltan. I don't need a visa to go to America. I am not burdened. I can stay where I am. But let me be very honest and candid as an African, a Pan-African, that this is setting a bad precedent. Legally, we have gone to court, like South Africa went to court to challenge Israel's occupation of Gaza. People were laughing, but it has implications. So you can see so many countries in Europe have now recognized Palestine. I have moved that step as a scholar of international law, and I'm not alone. There are many, and we encourage the people of Venezuela. We encourage the people of America to put their stand very clear, very clear. Come in the streets, demonstrate against Trump. Trump has become a nuisance to the world. He doesn't want black people.
Dr. Matsanga, is this not a clear indication of the limitations of international law application? Because you say people should come out onto the streets. It shouldn't be necessary for people to take to the streets if the laws are actually, implemented and abided by. Why should people take to the streets and put themselves in harm's way? Isn't it time to accept that these institutions, like the United Nations Security Council, like the ICJ, and yes, as you say, cases have been brought before them, even the case of Palestine that you mentioned. What has changed in Palestine over the time that South Africa...
What is changing is the pressure. We put pressure on these institutions to act. It might, the results might not be now, but results will be tomorrow. If we don't protect the international community, if we don't protect the new generation, who is going to protect them? Trump is 80 years old.
Should that protection come under the guise of the same institutions that exist today? Because the United States has veto power, so it doesn't matter what happens in the Security Council. They can veto any resolution, and that is that. So surely there needs to be reform of these institutions to make sure that they actually do have power and that whatever resolutions they come up with have to be adhered to and that they actually bite. But at the moment, it's toothless.
Look, we are Africa. Africa is 1.4 billion people. We have asked for a seat, at least 3 to 4 seats in the United Nations Security Council. We have been asking for over 8 years now. We have never received anything. We have not received even one half a seat. We have rotating seats that have nothing.
But isn't that part of the problem, Dr. Matsanga?
Therefore, reforms are needed to change the United Nations Security Council and the UN so that Africa can sit on the table and also make decisions, maybe balance some of these decisions that are made. You know that most of the wars are on the African continent. Where else are they? Most of the minerals are on the African continent. Where else are they? Therefore, we must have a seat or 4 seats, 2 to 4 seats on the United Nations Security Council. Now, Trump is trimming all this back, cutting all the agencies that were helping the third world countries. No, he must be stopped. That's why we call upon the people to stand up. Legally, we are following the legal route. But we call upon the people in the United States of America to go in millions and millions on the streets of New York, Washington, Los Angeles, Santiago, all these places, Las Vegas, go into the streets, Minnesota, rise up and refuse a Hitler coming from America.
It's just going back to your point about the Security Council reform. Why should Africa ask for 3 or 4 seats? Why can the UN Security Council not be reformed to the point where every member state has equal power in that body? Why should some still be more powerful than others? The setup of the
United Nations Security Council and after 1945, after the Second World War, is in that format up to today. We want not every member to have equal powers, but there are people, members that did not, at that time, had not got independence. That is how the formation of 1945 and the League of Nations.
Yes,
and
but if we're talking about reform, if we're talking about reform in 2026, then surely we're not looking at 1945 setups. We're looking at where the world is in 2026.
Yeah, you asked me about the background, where we ended up, where we are today. That's
no. I was not asking about the background. I'm asking about reform. Yes. If the UN Security Council has to reform, then surely Africa should not be asking for a few seats. Every member state.
We should. I agree. I agree with you that every member state should have equal rights. There are already equal rights within the UN. Any nation which is recognized its sovereignty. But now we have some superpowers who, like America, which is hungry, which is for appetite. It has a lot of appetite for oil, lithium, coltan, everything. It wants to grab people. So time has come for us to ask for further so that all of us come on a balanced, so we have equal rights in the UN. That is true, I agree with you. But in looking at the formation of the United Nations from 1945, from the League of Nations, they set it up that the members that won the Second World War became the darlings of the top cream to separate the East from the West. The Berlin Wall versus the Soviet Union versus the rest of the world. And now we are going back into the era of a new Cold War. Therefore, that's why we say Africa 1.4. And it brings me back, my sister, before I go. We in Africa, African Union, we are the most stupid people. Do you know why? We have gone back and we clap at these people. Instead of making our African Union in Addis Ababa stronger, we have not united. We are disunited. We are the worst characters on planet Earth with a lot of resources, yet we clap for these American people who come to bulldozers. We even give them visa. They put money on our visas to go there. We don't react like Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso. A revolution has started in West Africa. Let African leaders strike back because America does not have the sunshine. The America does not have the crooked back. You have a crooked back where these people come to see our animals. They don't have anything. Why don't you strike back?
Yeah,
Strike
but Dr.
back, my
Matsanga,
daughter.
we can't even fight against the African Union and make sure that the African Union is properly capacitated, is fit for purpose, is able to move speedily when there are crises on the African Union. So how much more about the fight at the United Nations?
You know, African Union has been captured by the French. We have a French mall in African Union headquarters. What France wants is what he does. We are in trouble. The only time that African Union, my sister, worked was when Dlamini Zuma, that lady where you were in South Africa, was. The rest have not worked. The other one was a sellout to the French. This other one is a sellout to the French. What the French want is what he does. For me, I will stand firm. At my age, I have no regrets. But to tell the truth, international law is being violated. Renditioning of people, picking presidents, overthrowing presidents. We must condemn, stand firm. I don't need a visa to go to America that I will be worried. I've studied to the last iota on planet Earth in institutions in the United Kingdom, well recognized, not American students, that I am not bothered. Let's be honest, we stand firm, tell the truth, stand against America, and say, no, enough is enough. And Americans themselves should be worried that their passport is going to become a problem across the world, because everywhere they go, everybody is going to start looking at them as enemies. So it's not Matsanga. I'm only trying to put this opinion, which I've put before the court, and which I believe the court can bring. Thank
Dr.
you.
Matsanga, please keep us updated on how this goes, and when you do receive, a response, can you please let us know so we can alert our viewers about that and talk to you again?
Yes, I have already got a good signal from the United Nations Secretary General Guterres. We worked together in Sudan when he was still in a Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I have received a good note. I think I'm going to make history by challenging America down in The Hague. Welcome, right. America. Rubio, and that Rubio has no immunity. Let him know when he walks to Africa next time after 4 years, a warrant from the African Court of Justice will come for him.
All right,
Trump
we'll
has
leave it there.
Immunity, but not Rubio. So let them not threaten African presidents. No. Thank you.
We will be in touch. Thank you so much, Dr. David Nyekorach-Matsanga, Pan-African Forum Ltd and Associates International Law expert, talking to us about him seeking an advisory opinion from the International Court of Justice on the U.S. military operation in Venezuela, and of course some of the attendant issues to that.